everybody, welcome to Light Reading Design. My name is Alan, and today we're going to be taking a step out of Photoshop and into Krita, where I've been requested to do a couple of things on how to use the tools and whatnot in this program. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing on this episode, okay? So for the most part, Krita follows the same principles and guidelines that Photoshop follows. We have width, height, resolution, same kind of stuff going on over here. There's a few different things happening with the templates and whatnot that you can start with. But for our purposes today, we're going to stick with custom document. This is just going to be a simple 8.5 by, oh, let's change this to inches too. So 8.5 by 11, standard sheet of paper, and resolution we'll just leave at 100. I'm going to flip it so that way it is horizontal. So we're going for landscape. Click create, and we should have ourselves a document here real shortly. There it is. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is go up to Window, Workspace, and change my workspace to Big Paint. And what this does is it adds a couple of interesting little, they call them over here, let's see what it is called actually, dockers. There we go. They call them dockers. In Photoshop, they just call them windows. So in Krita, if you ever wanted to add extra things, so extra little windows to your workspace, you can go up to Settings, Dockers, and you have a whole list of all these things right here. One that's really important that I find very strange that it doesn't come with is actually the undo history, which is sort of the history of all the things that you've done. And I think it's really important to have that just in case you make a mistake or you know, need to go back and take a look at something and compare. It's kind of like using Control Z, but like a visual of it. And we'll take a look at that later. So I was requested to show how to use some of these tools in like a photo editing kind of manner. So I thought a fun way to do this would be to take two animals and put them together. And the two animals that I decided to go with are a lion and a hamster. Now I'm using Google Chrome for this, so if you want to follow perfectly along with what I'm saying, this is probably the best way to do it. First thing that I would like to do is point out that I switched the large setting on. So in Google Chrome, whenever you are looking at that top bar, you see all images, news, all that stuff right there. If you hop over to tools while you're under the images tab, you can go to size and change it to large. And what that's going to do for you is give you larger resolution images. Now, remember, if you recalled watching my Photoshop video, resolution is very important because it's basically saying how many pixels are inside of this image. If you have a low resolution image and you try to expand it and make it larger, you'll stretch the pixels out and it'll look blurry and out of focus. Having a high resolution image to begin with will allow you to work with and kind of make it smaller, larger, and you have a little bit of leeway there. Now you don't want to make things too large, but having more pixels in there can give you, some size bonuses if you need it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start by looking at these pictures. You might notice there's a checker background here, but not whenever I see the image here. And what this means is it's a true PNG. This one here is a fake one, and I'll tell you what that means in just a second. If you see that there, it's kind of a trick. You have to click on it, open up the website, and then go from there. With these, well, I'll just show you. If I right click and copy this, go back down to Krita, Control V to paste. It's going to give you this little message here. It's just talking about the color profile. For this, I'm going to go ahead and just leave it as web. I'm going to set it to remember. And you might notice that now it's black. So whenever you copy a true PNG and you paste it into a program, whether it's Photoshop, Krita, or whatever, it's going to give you a black background. If you save it, however, so I'm going to save this image as, and let's just go with desktop here. I'm going to go ahead and just call this lion, hit save. Okay, now it's there. Click this little arrow here, show the folder. Open up Krita. There we go. And I'm just going to drag this in now as a new layer. So you can see the difference here. If you are going to copy a true PNG, oops, there you go. If you're going to copy a true PNG, you will end up with a black background. But if you save it as an image first, so save it as a PNG, and then insert it the way that I did. So for me, I just simply found the file. I saved it to my desktop. So I went to the desktop and I just drug it on here, inserted it as a new layer, and you can see here that it's going to have a transparent background. And that's going to be no matter what you're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of this real quick. Don't want too many of these things on there. Oh, I guess it doesn't do it that way. So there we go. So I'm gonna get rid of this one and just use the true PNG right here that already has the background removed. Now, hop back over here, go to the hamster, and while looking for your picture, you're going to want to find something that already kind of is in the right angle. There's some things you can do, but for the most part is if the picture is not facing the same direction, or if your subject is, you know, looking somewhere completely different, it's not going to work out very well for you. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this down to medium and see if I can get some more results. And there's my line. I think this one actually might do pretty well. So I'll do the same thing here. Save image as hamster. It's going to be on my desktop. Go back over to my folder. Remember, I just quick access right here. I just clicked on desktop. I'm going to just take that hamster and put it in here. Insert it as a new layer. And just like that, we have ourselves our lion and our hamster. Now you might notice down here at the bottom, I'm holding down V to move this stuff around. That's going to bring up the move tool. So holding down V will bring up the move tool like that. Now something about Krita that's different from Photoshop is some of the tools, if you hold it down, it toggles it, and it's not just a key press. So what I mean by that is like the eraser, for example. Like if I were to draw like this, if I hit E, now in Photoshop, this would not stay as the eraser. You would have your own dedicated eraser tool. In Krita, it's the brush, but with an eraser toggle on. You can click this up here, or you can hit E again to turn that eraser off. So let's go ahead and get into this. First thing I'm going to do is figure out the way that I want things to be arranged. Now on my left side here, I have this tool called the transform tool. This is accessible by using Control T as well. Now with Control T, I can move things around. Actually, it still has a bit, you can kind of see it, a bit of that other piece in there. So I'm going to go ahead and go back over and show you guys something else. Expand this out a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to take this little bean shape thing, and that's the lasso tool. While I'm on the hamster, I'm just going to circle this area. And I'm going to hit delete. Use Control D to deselect, and let's go ahead and check that hamster out. Hopefully, there we go. See how I got rid of that big open area that was over here? So now it's just the hamster, and we're good with that. So, like I was saying, we're going to kind of want to line things up. Now, one thing Krita does nice with all this stuff is you can see it kind of turns transparent whenever you have the transform tool on, which allows you to see what's going on underneath. Photoshop doesn't do that. You have to manually adjust the opacity in the layer. So this is sort of a nice little perk that Krita has. So this lion and this hamster line up pretty well like this. If I hold down shift, I can keep their proportions the same while I grab that in. I'm just going to line that up right there. To get out of transform mode, all you have to do is switch to a different tool. And just like that, we've done it. So here I'm going to go back to my lasso tool. And this isn't going to be super duper, like super clean. I'm just going to go through the tools like this, and I'm just gonna go for a little jagged edge around this hamster head. Now anything that you circle on the outside, like all this extra stuff over here, like I can circle this spot over here. Since there's no picture data in this area, nothing will happen to it. And as a matter of fact, if I go to move, it goes away completely and only grabs the area that does have image data. Okay? So what that means for you, and the reason why that's a big deal, is because of this. It allows you to make really quick edits without being super precise. Now, for example, if I wanted this ear, just the ear, I can just grab this section right here and just kind of close it off like that. So I'm just making a circle and just letting it complete itself. If I wanted just the eye, I can circle it here and lock it in, and it'll do it. So this is really good for making quick deletes, quick edits, quick grabs with selections. Just complete it to whatever you need to, and then let it do the rest of the work. One thing you want to try to avoid with the selection tool is going into something like this, because now you have this weird dotted line mess. And I mean, just to kind of show you here, if I were to do that in this and move something, it's going to grab all kinds of really weird stuff. Okay, so you want to try not to get really tangled up with your selections, okay? So let's go ahead and go back to that hamster head, go back there, go ahead and do some zigzags. Remember, we want it jagged just to kind of help make things not look so clean. There it is. Now, while I'm on this tool, the selection tool, right, the little bean over there, I'm gonna right click or pen click, and you see it gives you the option to cut selection to new layer or copy. Now, cut is what's gonna be destructive editing. That's what that term is all about. Now, cut is going to be what's called destructive editing, meaning if I do this, it damages the original picture, meaning it is no longer there. It is separated from the body and it is just done. Like, I can't get this head back in that state unless I manually and meticulously put it back, or just Control Z back. What I'm going to do is show you a non-destructive way to edit. Now, either one's fine for this type of simple task, but if you really want to keep this hamster body intact, you can right click and do layer copy, which is the second one down here. This means I'm going to have a selection of the head, but if I wanted the body, I can still, or like the body and the head, I can still have all that stuff together. Okay, Control D to deselect. Hop back over to my move tool real quick, and I'm going to just kind of line this up a little bit better. Control T to get the transform tool, maybe tilt this guy some. Yeah, something like that. I think we'll be good with this. Kind of keep snapping into that position. So that looks pretty good right there. All right. So the next thing I want to show you is we got a couple of layers going on here. And sometimes whenever you're doing some edits, or even whenever you're working on a painting, you might need to group your layers in a way that's more like easy to see what's going on. You need to organize, right? So what I would do is grab my top layer here, which is the hamster head. I got the body down here, and then I got the lion right below. If I start at the top layer and hold down the shift key, I can select the lion, which is the bottom one. You might notice it grabs everything in between. So I can actually do this all the way down to the background if I wanted to. If I hold on Control when I'm doing this, I can select specific layers without getting everything in between. So holding down shift, clicking on that lion, so I have all of the little animal pieces there. I'm gonna right click or pen click and do a group, quick group. This now puts all of these layers in a folder, and you can tell by that little folder icon that's right there. If I hide the folder, it hides everything inside of the layer. If I select the folder and go to move or transform or any of that, it's gonna do it for the entire thing. Everything that's in this folder is now being affected by this. Now the next step for this, because it still looks like I just cropped a hamster head and put it on a lion, is to do a little bit of blending. And I'm going to be honest here, I'm not super familiar with Krita enough to give you any super advanced photo editing, blending, merging techniques here. That's more of a Photoshop thing for me. But what I can show you is how you can use some of these brushes down here to do some color picking and some light blending, and that'll help you at least get some stuff going with that. Before I get to it though, I would like to kind of go up here and do a little bit with the filters to kind of balance my color out. So my hamster sticks out a little bit too much. So if I go up to filter and adjust, we get this list of things right here. I'm going to go to HSV adjustment, which is also Control U on the keyboard. This is the hue saturation adjustment tool in Photoshop. They just called it HSV for hue, saturation, and value. Even though it says lightness here, it's referring to value. Since I have just the hamster head selected, if I change the hue or anything like that, it's going to adjust only on the hamster. What I'm looking to do is bring a little bit of balance to this picture, which means if I need to make it really saturated or desaturated, that's what this whole thing's about. So I'm just trying to figure out a good way to balance all this out. You can untick this preview box here to kind of see the before and after. So like if I did this and wanted to see what it looked like originally, you can just click on preview for that. My changes aren't going to be super great. Oops. Because what I'm really looking to do is bring out a little bit more yellow. Not that much, just a little bit. And bring down that saturation just a tad, probably. So in this one, like you can barely see the differences between what I did and that, but what it does do is it helps it blend a little bit more and make it more believable, fit into the temperature of the lion, which is dominantly warm with some yellow and orange tones, instead of being kind of almost on a blue side. Like this hamster originally kind of has like this bluish purple tone going on. So I just kind of got rid of that by changing the hue ever so slightly, okay? So I'm going to hit OK. That's going to save those changes. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and go over to the brush tool. You can also access this with the letter B on the keyboard. And take a look at my brushes. Now, in my brushes, this is over here. I can select different ones by going over here to the brush preset. And by different ones, I mean different groups. Digital brushes, erasers, FX, things like that. I'm going to go check out effects, actually, see what's going on there. And not really for me in this one. So I'm going to go to paint. And one of my favorite ones to use in this program is the Bristles. Let's see here. Bristles 4 Glaze. That's what it is. And the reason I like it is because it's got a really nice just texture to it. Really good gradient going on with your... it's got a really good gradient going on with your pressure sensitivity. So if you were really careful and you gradually increase your pressure, you should be able to get some nice effects out of that. Now this is going to work really nicely for blending. I'm going to go ahead and change my size. So I'm dropping down a little bit to fit the picture a little better. Before it was kind of large, I didn't want it to cover up too much. And here is where we get to the color picking. Hold down Control, like you can see down here, and that brings up the color pick or the eyedropper. If you tap on whatever color that it's hovering over with the little crosshairs there, that's the color that is selected. And you can kind of drag it around, and if you look in the upper right corner there, you'll see that my color triangle is going all over the place because I'm getting a whole bunch of different values and kind of all in the same hue range, honestly, but yeah, you get the idea. So I'm going to take this color from the hamster and slowly start bringing it down. So I'm very lightly pressing on my pen. And again, this isn't going to be like a really advanced, super accurate, realistic image here. I'm not going for that kind of thing. I'm just kind of making sure that you understand how these things work and how the tools can be worked together to get a desired effect. Grab some of this orange from the line and, ooh, that's a little too much. Control Z. Let's grab a lighter color. There we go. Kind of bring some of those in. I also like that these strokes from this brush have a little bit of texture around the edges. Bring some of this white in too. And you're just going to walk these back and forth. And that's kind of the rest of the blending process, to be honest with you. Once you set those in from the HSV, remember that's from Filter, Adjustments, HSV adjustment right here. Once you get the balance right, the rest of this kind of comes together on its own, which is really nice. It's just a matter of blending those colors together. So I'm going to get this. Actually, I'm going to take the lion mane and pull that into here. So now we're going to put the mane on our mouse. Add some of these darker colors just to bring a little bit more contrast. Everything was kind of looking the same color. There we go. And something like that, okay? So we've taken our lion and turned it into a hamster face lion with a little bit of a painterly aspect to this. Now, for the sake of consistency, what I would really do with this is go through the rest of the image and apply these strokes to it so it doesn't look like you have a realistic mouse face, or hamster face rather, and painted everything else. This will make everything blend together stylistically, which is something you really want to do in something like this because it'd look really weird if you didn't. So I'd go to the body of the lion and go through and put some texturing down on here with the brush. Give it that painterly look with this Bristles 4 glaze. That's a little too crazy there. And that'll just smooth out some of these realistic textures and give it sort of the painterly look that we're going for with this. And really all I'm doing is just color picking, going up and down, figuring out where I want these colors to go while still maintaining the same lighting and values of the original image. Okay, so you can see there what I did. I kind of got rid of some of that stuff. Honestly, there is a few, like this area here has some more saturated colors. I probably want to put that back in because I don't want things to look too dull. So just a quick recap of everything we went over today. So let's do a quick recap of everything that we went over today. First thing, I went over here to Window, Workspace, and set it to Big Paint. that gave me the layout that you see right here before you. Now I did have to expand this out a little bit because it was called shoved over to the left. So I expanded that out to give me some more room and allow me to see the rest of the tools that were underneath all that stuff. The big deal though for me, and that I didn't get to in the actual content, was the undo history. So in the undo history here, you see that freehand brushstroke, add layer, raise nodes, things like that. It gives you a visual history of all of the actions that you've taken up to a certain point. It doesn't save all your actions. It's, you know, probably like the last 25 or 30 usually. But this allows you to go back in case you make a mistake, and you can see exactly what you were doing. So if you knew the last thing you did was delete a layer by accident, you'll see over here in the undo history that it says deleted layer or delete layer. Okay. So that was that. Again, that was under Window, Workspace, and I'm on Big Paint right now. I went over the use of the brush tool a little bit. I went over the move tool and the transform tool, which is right next to it. Remember, transform only works if you have something there. So if I click on transform from here, let's go ahead and just merge all this stuff together. So I'm going to right click this whole selection. Remember to select all of it. I'm just holding down shift. I'm at the line. It's going to get all that in between if you hold shift. And I'm just going to go ahead and merge layers. So where is that here? Remove new layers, merge with layer below. There you go. Merge with layer below. Now this is all one big thing. Move tool, I'll move it around. Transform tool allows me to change proportions and all this other stuff. Now, if you're trying to change things up, remember, hold down shift to maintain those proportions so it doesn't get all messed up. You can actually, without holding shift, flip the image by going to the other side, which is kind of nice. Went over the lasso tool, which is the little bean shape here. They don't call it the lasso tool in Krita. They call it the outline selection tool. But what this allows you to do is to freeform draw your own selections, which you can then go to the move tool and move around. Okay. To deselect something that you've selected, like I have here, shortcut is Control D. The magic wand tool is something that I did not use. It's called the contiguous selection tool in Krita, but what it basically does is selects like colors. So you can go around here and see that whenever I click on this group, it clicks all this, selects all these similar colors. If I wanted just that, it selects that. This is really nice, so that way you can just make quick group color edits. It doesn't seem to have the same adjustability as Photoshop when it comes to tolerance, so it looks like it's sort of whatever you're stuck with, and that's kind of it. Now, if you hold down Shift, you are able to add more selections. So if I just grab this white spot here and click outside, it's gonna select all the other orange stuff. But if I hold down Shift, I can select that and more. So Shift is just to add more to your selection. Alt is to remove. Okay. Control D to get rid of. Just one more time. And this is sort of a general rule for most of these selection things. If you hold down Shift while you're selecting, it's going to add to your selection. If you hold down Alt while you're selecting, it's going to remove. You can also use the delete key on your keyboard once you make a selection to delete whatever's inside of that selection. We dealt with a little bit of folder work over here, and that's just simply by using that Shift method. So if I had a whole bunch of layers right here, I can hold down Shift to select all the layers in between. So from the top to the bottom here, hold down Shift and boom, it gets all of them. If I just do this one, this one, this one, whatever, I can jump around to whatever. It just takes the top selection and the bottom and everything in between. But if I only wanted to combine certain layers, I can hold down Control to specifically select those layers. Well guys, that just about does it for this video. Hopefully you found it useful. Feel free to comment and let me know if there's anything else that you wanted to know that I didn't get to. So take it easy, and remember, stay creative.